you. We'd like to call the regular meeting to order. If you will stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silent prayer, please. Standing for a moment of silent prayer. Thank you. The first item on the agenda are public comments. If you could go to the microphone and give your name and address, and it's a 3-minute per person, and you can also speak on every agenda item that's on the agenda. Any public comments? And just remember, the person who does the minutes, they're not in the meeting. So talking to the microphone real clear, and that helps them out.
I'm Judy Pontius, 1196 Lester Avenue, Ypsilanti, Michigan. I'm not going over. Approximately 2016, one neighbor complained to the township about water. I put in extra filters and took care of the problem. Washington County Sheriff visited me, counted the plans, and said I was under count, there was no smell, and I was in compliance. The Township Board, in their infinite wisdom or prejudice regarding marijuana and caregivers, took it through the courts at the expense of the taxpayers of the township, losing until the DeReeder case in Michigan Supreme Court, favoring municipalities regarding zoning. I never received any paperwork regarding the show cause hearing on June 11th until a copy was sent to me via an attorney who no longer worked for me, saying that I had to destroy all my plans except for 12. It was received on June 17th by me, and I was to destroy it by the 21st. Of course, I didn't do that. The point here is people in positions of power, possibly to their own prejudices, should not make decisions about their constituents' freedoms without input from them. The majority of caregivers are in it to help patients control pain and cannot afford dispensaries. We cannot afford to buy properties in the limited zoning of light industrial they choose and partly a green zone. The majority of caregivers are in it to help those that need this God-given plant and are in it to help those that need it for medication, making it cheaper for patients, sometimes free. An example, my granddaughter fought lupus, blood disorder, aneurysm, and pain for 20 years. The free meds helped her with pain. However, a major seizure a little over a year ago took her life at 39. Municipalities are trying to get rid of caregivers all over Michigan now, but we will continue to fight for the freedom to provide patients with their God-given meds and fight those wanting to throw us in limited zoning, making it too expensive or impossible to provide for our needy patients. It is hypocritical for anybody extremely wealthy to say being a caregiver is all about the money. I, along with many of us, would suggest to this board to use their position to listen to their constituents, and if that is not your priority, then please step down from your position. Thank you.
Can we turn up the sound, please, a little?
I think that he can't hear.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
He can't
He
hear.
asked if we could turn the sound up a little bit.
So just for people who speak, it's voice activated, so you have to get close to it, and then everyone can hear.
Same way.
Okay. Hi, my name is Floki Ivy, and I live in Sugarbrook. I'm here to discuss the budget. In my neighborhood, I have observed some ineffectiveness of the police department, and They tend to come after the fact and round up a lot of the people in the neighborhood who look like they're the ones who commit the crimes, and then those people are the ones who end up getting a lot of tickets. And then this is also corroborated by the district attorney did a study and found that if you are a person of color in our community, you're 3 times more likely to have a ticket for failure to pay a ticket. So this is a major problem in our community, and I think that adding more police to certain communities is only going to act to exacerbate this problem. And I think that one of the major reasons that we're having so much crime in our area is because we're not addressing the systemic problems. We're trying to address the problems after they've already occurred with the police. And so I'm asking everyone to, rather than allocate the funds to try to address the problems after they've occurred, and where they may be even exacerbating the problem by making people poorer, I'm asking for you to allocate those funds to try to nip the problem in the bud and give the money to the community so they could address some of the systemic problems. Also, I would like to address the fact that we're placing the marijuana area in the community. I don't feel like the area is blighted. To say that it's blighted is to say that it is an area that was once lived in, and then that area has been like run down. And I think that we have some areas in our community that fit that criteria and that could really use that money. And I think that we should do things to try to get those people that money, particularly 48198, the community that I live in. And we drive past it all the time, and we know where it is, and we know what it is, and we know where the money should go. So I don't know why we're investing it in the middle of a field when we have places that are walkable for people, where they could have jobs, and that are already actually blighted, filled with people who are actually affected by the problem. Also, I would like to request for the meetings to have online access. A lot of people in my neighborhood would like to be here, but they don't have access or work jobs that make it prohibitive for them to be here. We had Zoom available at some point, but now it's like less available for people, and it's making it less accessible for people. And I like to ask for that to continue, so it continues to be more accessible for people. Also, I would like to say that all of this money that we're spending and these mills and all this money is making it so that we have some of the highest taxes. I know ours aren't as high as the city, that's obvious, but our taxes are high, and it makes it cost prohibitive for people in a certain tax bracket to make it so that they could own homes. And it makes it so that people who are going to be landlords can go into these communities, buy them up, and then pass the cost of increased taxes or high taxes onto the renters. And then it makes it harder for renters to ever save up money for a down payment or ever to own a home. So it's really a place where millennials in particular, I think, really are struggling. And I'd ask you to try to make it so that people in our community have more of an ability to own homes in our community.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Myla Harris. I am the ASME Vice President of Local 3451. I am also a township employee for 28 years, and I just wanted to stand up and commend the Township Board and the Ordinance Department. The whole issue in regards to the marijuana is where the Ordinance Department received calls of complaint, and the township did what they were supposed to do, just like if it was any other complaint, and went out and did an investigation. Of course, there were the legal aspects of it, and the Supreme Court ruled in favor of the township. My only observation here is location, 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 and it's just in the wrong location. These are homeowners or also renters that are maybe inconvenienced. And I guarantee you that if it was something where there was traffic going in and out of a home, that any of these people that are against the marijuana decision, constant in and out of a home any time of the night, if it was any suspect of drug activity, they would call the township for ordinance investigation. If it was dog fighting and all times of the night, any disturbance, they would call the ordinance department. If it was auto mechanics or fixing up your cars, disturbing the peace, a nuisance, that the township would investigate it. So that is the job of the ordinance department, is to carry out and do like they always, I remember back in the day, the logo was placing residents first. And if that is the ruling, just because no one likes the ruling, then you still need to obey the ruling. So I just rose to say that. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
My turn.
Wow. I'll step back. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Donna Bine. I'm sure Brenda knows me from last year fighting all the rats. I am a medical patient.
You can address the court. Okay.
I'm a medical patient. And, is this a court? Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know you were court.
Wait a minute, you got it.
Anyways,
And just give your name.
my name's Donna Bine. You remember that name, right? From last year? I am a medical patient. I had breast cancer, and I'm also taking pills to keep me from getting it again, and the pills cause bone pain. So I need my medicine. It's the only way I can sleep. And you're telling me that the township will not allow growers. Nobody goes to Judith's house to pick anything up. I'm sorry, but they don't. I don't know what that girl's talking about, but it's not true.
Just address your comments.
I heard you say it. I'm sorry.
Okay.
But that's all I want to say. And we're still having rats, Brenda. And I would love you and this Jeffrey Feiger guy over here to come and sit on my porch for a day and see what I have to look at.
And we won't have personal attacks either.
Well, that's what he looks like.
I miss-
Thank you. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Next.
My name's Joe Sullivan, and we all just stood for the Pledge of Allegiance. That's for America, correct?
Could you give your address, please, sir, for the
It
record?
is 6434 Sterling Road. That's a free America, right? Because what part of free America states that you can tell somebody what they're going to do in their own home? Nothing. It's behind closed doors. You have no right to tell people what to do in their own home. You are not elected law officials. This goes back to archaic times. You're trying to put a lady in jail for contempt for not committing a crime. There was no crime committed. Same as the Salem witch trials. That's exactly what you guys are doing right here, right now, every one of you. And it is wrong. That's all I have to say.
Thank you for your comment, sir.
My name is Arloa Kaiser. I live at 1421 Melvin Street in Sugarbrooke. I've lived there almost 50 years, and I don't like the attack on the police officers. They have been kind. They help us. Thank you.
If you could address your comments to me, Ms. Kaiser.
Yes.
Thank you.
The police officers take care of us. They come to neighborhood watch meetings. A lot of people complain about the neighborhoods and that, but obviously with the COVID, no, people aren't going to neighborhood watch meetings, but that's where people go. Rules are made to keep everyone safe. Unfortunately, there are people that don't want to follow the rules. Excuse me, ma'am.
Thank you, Ms. Oh, are you?
Anyway, our board is elected. We elected you. You make the rules. All these meetings, that's what we're here for, is to talk to you, but in a peaceable fashion. Rules are made for everyone, and you can't please everyone. But I do object to people talking bad about the police.
Thank you.
And I think people should calm down.
Thank you. Other public comment? Yeah.
Hello. My name is Jenny Lindeman. I actually live in Flushing Township, and I'm a member of the Michigan ASA, which is Americans for Safe Access, and I have a master's in social work. I am here to talk to you today about the ordinance that you have for caregivers, and I understand the last thing you want to hear is from a bunch of outsiders who don't live here. I have been working with my township to create a caregiver ordinance that worked for everybody. They had put one out back in February, and it was very restrictive, but we got in touch with them, and we've been making negotiations. We've been making an ordinance that addresses their issues, which is safety and nuisances, but also preserves the patient caregiver rights and access for these individuals. Excuse me. My biggest issue or concern with your ordinance as it is that you are essentially saying they have to go back to an industrial area, and that is very expensive. Caregivers, per the MMMA, are only allowed to recoup money via donations for how much they've put into their grow. And so therefore, they would not have that financial they just wouldn't have the money to do it. And if they do, they'd have to raise their prices so much higher that the medicine that is free or affordable would no longer be free or affordable. I do understand, again, your concerns, but this can be done working with the residents, with the caregivers, with the patients, and you could come up with an ordinance that works for everybody. I do think that being in that industrial area also could invite more crime and more theft, something that you don't want to happen. When they operate in secret in their house, people don't know about it. If they were to provide filters and be good neighbors and live in that residence, then I really think that they should be allowed to grow for their patients. The 12 plants is not enough for 5 patients. And they also tailor this medicine unique for each patient. And that's something that they can't get if they go to a dispensary. So that's why caregivers are very important. And so I am just asking you guys, the board, to please consider amending your ordinance to allow caregivers to still operate in the residence so they can keep the medicine affordable or free. And and then they will work with you to make sure that the noise is down, that there's no traffic, there's no smell, no reason to have neighbors calling to complain to you. But I just think there's a lot of room to compromise, is what I'm saying. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Myla Harris. I wanted to point out that with the ordinance set in place now, for those that have excess, that there has been, as far as in Wingate, that was doing certain things, being in excess of the 12 plants, that was doing it behind closed doors. And it was a fire in Wingate that did the same thing. So there was a caregiver that was only supposed to have 12 plants. And in I believe the Lakeview mobile home park, there was a fire. So I believe that if anything, it's bringing attention and more people are coming forward, but it does make it hard for those that want to speak up and they can't, but that when you don't abide by the ordinance or the rules, then it is situations and consequences that they have where then there are fires and then the community is interrupted. Thank you.
Other public comment?
Hi, my name is Tanya Kay, and I wanted to introduce you guys to Anastasia, who is the youngest medical marijuana patient in Michigan. Anastasia is completely dependent upon caregiver medications. That is because no dispensary in the state of Michigan or provisioning center can customize her medication for her. She is 7 months old. She doesn't need a lot, but what she needs is concentrate. So that 12 plants, she uses every single bit of her 12 plants and then some, because it's not just the THC, it's the CBG, it's the CBD, and it's the combination of the three that makes it so she doesn't have any seizures. At 3 months old, she was on phenobarbital and a little potato, not even doing anything. Now you can see she's smiling, laughing, active, and cannabis has really saved my granddaughter's life. I can't imagine what she would be like before. The point of me coming up here is to show you an example of why more than 12 plants is needed. More than 12 plants is needed, and the caregiver system is necessary. So, thank
Could you give your address, please?
1233 North Oak Road.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I actually have one more statement. You know what changes your guys' minds on caregivers?
Sir,
Is when
you
your
need to give your
family
name
gets
and your
cancer and you
address.
have to come to us for help.
You need to give your name and address. The
Joe
person-
Sullivan, 6434 Sterling
And you
Road.
don't have to yell because you have a microphone.
Okay, no problem. When you guys need caregivers is when your family members have cancer and the doctors tell you there's nothing they can do. And we can help you. That's when you guys' mind will change. Not until then. This is ridiculous.
Are there any other comments from the public? Any other public comment?
Greetings. Honorable elected trustees, I'm from Ypsilanti Township, and I'm a trustee myself. I took the same oath of office that you all did. I know many of the people in this room because I've met them at several township meetings, and communities in my county of Genesee have been drafting ordinances. I understand as a trustee that there are some things that responsibly we need to take a look at and that we need to regulate responsibly. But I think in this particular case, especially with Judas Pontus, this is an overreach. Instead of regulating it properly, you use an exclusionary zoning tactic. It's just a tactic. It's not. You can change that ordinance. You can. I understand that there are some new trustees to this board that haven't even weighed in on this. I think it's incumbent of you to weigh in on this. Remember that you were elected by the people to represent. And yes, even in my own community, I wrote a ordinance which does restrict some things. Mainly, the main restriction that I was focused on was what I called remote growing operations. And that's when you have outsiders that come into your community that set up growing operations, then they don't live there. If you want to outlaw something like that, then utilize the language or something like that to curtail that. But if you don't, there's no need to use the excessive force of government to totally outlaw or ban, completely restrict or otherwise make it unnecessary or make it too cumbersome for a patient to care for their or a caregiver to care for their patients. With that said, I have an ordinance draft. If you're welcome to take a look at it any time, it's online for review.
What is your name for the record? I'm sorry, I didn't hear it.
Eric Gunnels, and yes.
The person who types the minutes just isn't here.
Understand. And I realize that I'm not from your community, but I hope that some of the messages that we bring tonight weigh in on your minds, and hopefully maybe you've seen a side of this that you didn't know before. Remember that your ordinance can be redrafted. You can revisit it. You can revisit this decision. You can override any decision which then is affecting Judith. The whole point of the legislative branch, which you're a part of, is to be there to override the judicial branch or the executive branch when it makes mistakes or it's not in touch with the community. Again, if you have nuisance issues, address the nuisance issues. Don't use the force of government to infringe upon the rights of other people. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening.
I really appreciate that you guys were trying to
Just
keep
give your
decorum.
name for-
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm
yeah.
so sorry.
Yeah, that's
My name
okay.
is Floki Ivy. I live in Sugarbrook. I really appreciate that you're trying to keep decorum here, but I ask that you keep decorum equally amongst all people here. And so when you ask people to address the board, that you ask all people to address the board, because that wasn't equally applied to me, and I felt like that was discriminatory. So please, if you could have people, those rules to be applied equally amongst all people, I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Of course.
I'm really short.
Oh, it might turn down. There we go.
All right, cool. That's better than me standing on tippy toes. Hi, my name is Leah Schuyler. I live at 712 North Congress, and I grew up with my weekends being spent on Ford Boulevard in the Willow Run neighborhood. I am the secretary of the Michigan Democratic Party Cannabis Caucus, and I am the chair of the Young Democrats of Michigan. And I came out tonight to support Judith and to explain to you guys that caregiver medicine really is crucial. It's super important. And I'm super hyped that we have rec. I'm super hyped that we have dispensaries. But the way we got here was because of the patients and the caregivers. And we need to kind of recenter this discussion and remember that this is medicine. And this is medicine that's not available in your recreational shops, is not available in your medical shops. You have caregivers that make plants and stuff like RSO and concentrates, things that keep my best friend with epilepsy from having seizures every single day constantly. The cost for her to afford her medicine from non-caregivers is almost bankrupting her family. And no, she doesn't live here in Ypsi, but those are the stories all throughout the state. And so there are people here in our community that are experiencing that same thing. And I would really like to see us be more supportive of the caregivers. And remember that these are patients. These are sick people. These are people who are on their last days. And some of these people don't have that extra income to go pay the extraordinary expenses at the dispensary, but they can go to their caregiver and have a relationship with them where their medicine is custom to them, and it's not going to run out. It's going to be consistent, and I think we just really need to remember some of that and recenter that. I also would like us to maybe look more into the caregiver rights, because I've always understood that depending on how many patients you have, that affects how many plants you can have. So I do think we need to review that a little bit here in this case. And we've been talking about cannabis for so long in the township, and we know that our voters voted for it. We know that our people support it, and I would really like you guys to remember that you do work for the people. Thank you.
Thank you. There was another lady.
Hello, everyone. Good evening, board. I hope everyone's doing well. Denise Kirchhoff, 6298 Maplehurst. I'm actually vice chair of the Michigan Cannabis Caucus, national vice chair of a cannabis caucus, and also vice chair and treasurer of which is about to be the largest Democratic super PAC in the state of Michigan. I've just been approached to work with Thetford to help them write their laws on cannabis, on what that looks like. I've also been approached by St. Clair County, Oscoda, and Marquette. Because of this outreach, the caucus has felt the need to actually reach out to the governor. We have actually received an audience from her, and we've actually talked to her that there needs to be some uniformity in this. So we are actually creating some back and forth right now. I do totally understand how you went about writing basically your code, but unfortunately it's extremely unfair. One of the things you really do need to realize is that, for one, over 62% of people voted for this in this township. Most people on this township board actually ran saying, you know what, elect me again, and I will actually help bring medical and bring rec. You know, you can sit there, nod your head, say you didn't do it, but it's all on video, and that's fine. But here's the point that people need to realize. This has actually been kicked up to the governor. This is something that's going to happen. the rules and regulations you've written right now are very unfair, and I can tell there are people actually in here talking who really don't understand what they're talking about, because the reality is a caregiver has the right to do 12 plants per patient, not 12 plants for herself, but for patient. So I hear a lot of the back and forth on the board, and I'm sure everybody's tried to read what they needed to read on it, but the fact is, there are a lot of inaccuracies right now, and I think if you're going to make these zoning ordinances, that you really need to be fair about it, because here's the reality. A lot of cities and townships are unfair, and in the state of Michigan, that will change. And unfortunately, there we are actually pushing for a pushback when we know that you have actually made it hard. Let's just say you make it hard. You're putting them off in a corner in an area, and we're going to appeal to the governor. You know what? Counties and townships and cities need to be sanctioned for that, period. Because it's just unfair. What Judith is doing, you know what? The law ruled one way. I'm sure she's going to comply, but we all see this. I don't know if you guys have actually looked into Facebook at how much you have been vilified. And the problem is that I don't think a lot of people on this board, I know one person who has really looked into what you're talking about. So it's hard for a lot of us. You see our faces and stuff because we hear people standing up and talking, and that's fine. You know, they're not speaking the accurate truth. My thing is, if you want to make a zoning ordinance, if you want it, I mean, we all know you wanted it to be hard, next to impossible, so it couldn't be done. You know, blind man can see that. But my thing is, even when people come to this meeting, actually look up what you're talking about, because I've heard a lot of things said here tonight. A lot of us have, and we're just like, you know, I'm not even going to say untruth like the new reality is. They're just flat out lies, or just people not researching the information that they need to research. But I would truly suggest, because of the different townships and counties that I'm working with, and they actually looked into you guys and they were like, okay, we don't want to be them. I mean, all the way up to Marquette, they're like, we do not want to be them, because this just makes, you know, and I'm not saying this to make you feel bad or anything. They do not want to be you guys because they see what it is. They're like, they did this on purpose, and they truly do think it's just egregious, as a lot of us do. And I'd say, you know, this is an issue you are definitely going to have to revisit, but I'd say by the next time Governor Whitmer's in office, it's going to be forced to be revisited, and what you've done is actually not going to be allowed. But I do thank you for your time.
Thank you, Denise.
My name is Arloa Kaiser. I live at 1421 Melvin Street in Sugar Brook. And may I say I thank the board for, and I know a lot of you were not here, but for the rules you have made. Anything you need rules, you have to go by them. Rules can always be changed, but you have to work through it, find all the details as much as you can, and I do appreciate the board for their research and that type of thing. Rules are rules. People don't want to follow the rules. Rules are made for a reason. Eventually, if something needs to be changed, it can, but not just helter-skelter. I want to do this, I want to do that, because I live in a house and I own that house or whatever. Rules are rules. And thank you, board.
Thank you. Are there any other public? No, don't do that, please.
Good evening. My name is Ryan Bringold. I live at 3846 Oak Knoll Road in Waterford, Michigan. I am one of the people here that are here to support Judith and maybe educate some of the other people in the room. First and foremost, the people of this state voted in 2008 for medical marijuana in the caregiver system. This board has done everything they could to supersede what the people voted for. Everybody knew there was a caregiver system. Each patient got 12 plants. People on this board didn't like the way that panned out for whatever reason, so you're making rules to stop caregivers. The state made a choice, the people of this state made a choice. So when people are talking about the rules were already set. What you guys have done is change the game. You couldn't win on a state level, so you do it on a local level and hurt patients. Now, Judith isn't the only person in a 36 square mile that's growing as a caregiver, but yet she's the only one being prosecuted and put on charges. I find it hard to believe that there's not more caregivers in this township. What you've done is scare most of them from wanting to come and testify because they don't know what you're going to do next. But if we're talking about rules, let's talk about the main rule. We voted in 2008. The people knew what they were voting for. If you don't like that, then you should have voted against it, but we won. For once, the medical marijuana people won something that a lot of people don't like. You can't get over it, so you come after us, and people are going to suffer. So if you guys want to talk about rules, there's more people than this woman here in 36 square miles of Ypsilanti Township. Doesn't look like you care about the rules, you care about prosecuting this one person. Marijuana is not the scourge of the state. I don't see on the news that Ypsilanti Township has endless marijuana problems. So either the news is missing it or it's not happening. You guys need to take a minute, think about what the people of this township really want, and reconsider what you're doing for patients. Thank you and have a good night.
Thank you, sir. Are there any other public comment? Any other public comment? Hearing none, we'll go on to the agenda. We have the consent agenda, which are the minutes of the June 29th, 2021 special meeting and the July 6th work session and regular meeting, and statements and checks, and the treasurer's report for June of 2021.
So moved, Joe Rowe.
Support.
Motion Rowe, support Eldridge to approve the consent agenda. Are there comments, questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. The attorney report was given in the work session. Do you have any additional attorney reports, sir?
Yes, yes, I do. This is going to be an update for the board in regards to the Judith Pontius case. And at the outset, can you hear me back there? Okay. At the outset, I'm going to point out that it's been said many, many times, it's true tonight, that everyone is entitled to your own opinion, but you're not entitled to your own facts. So what I'm going to update the board on are the facts in regards to the medical marijuana ordinance, or the act that was approved by the voters in 2008, because our ordinance was approved in 2010. But I'm going to back up for a second. In 2008, when the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act was approved or voted by the voters, it didn't state in the act as to where the location for where medical marijuana caregivers could locate. That was not part of the act. And that is why there's been 13 years of litigation, because the act was written so poorly in 2008. In 2010, now it's been 11 years ago, this township board, not the same members, but this township board, approved an ordinance that allows primary caregivers to grow up to 60 plants if they have 5 patients, and 12 more for themselves if they are a patient, but they had to be located in an I-1 zoning district. That went before the Township Planning Commission. It went before the Township Board. Plenty of opportunity for input during that time period. It was adopted by the Township Board in 2010. Hasn't just happened recently. It's been there for 11 years. Right now, with the Medical Marijuana Act, coupled with the Michigan Recreational Act, each person in this township can grow 12 marijuana plants right here, right now. If you're recreational, you can grow 12 plants on the premises, and if you have a medical marijuana card, you can grow 12 plants. If you're a caregiver, you can't locate and be a caregiver in a residential district. Now, back in 2014, 2 years before the Judith Pontius case was started in the court system, there was another court case that occurred here in this township. And the township went before a different circuit court judge at the time, Judge Archie Brown. In 2014, Judge Brown, who was obviously somewhat ahead of his time in regards to this issue of location, stated in an opinion in 2014 in regards to the township's ordinance, in the instant case, the township's ordinance does not ban all uses allowed under the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act. The ordinance merely regulates where the caregivers do business. The township ordinance does not conflict with the MMMA, as all uses permitted under the act are permitted in the township ordinance. There is no evidence that the township has adopted any regulations which prohibit marijuana use permitted by the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act. The township ordinance regulates where medical marijuana caregivers can grow and distribute medical marijuana for others. The township ordinance does not prohibit medical marijuana caregivers from growing, processing, cultivating, packaging, and distributing medical marijuana. It merely requires that such operations be conducted in I-1 zoning districts rather than residentially zoned neighborhoods. That was in 2014. That was what Judge Brown ruled at the time. In 2016, and you're probably right, there may be other caregivers out there the township's not aware of, I don't know. But in 2016, it came to the attention of the township that Judith Pontius was growing in excess of 12 marijuana plants as a caregiver. That resulted in a case being filed in 2016 in the circuit court. Now, you talk about a nation of laws, and we are. And in 2016, the township went to court. It wasn't assigned to Judge Brown, who had already ruled on the same issue. It was assigned to Judge Conkey. We brought up the issue that it had been ruled upon by Judge Brown, but she chose to make her own ruling. In 2016, Judge Conkey, thereafter, she determined that there was a conflict between the Medical Marijuana Act and the Township zoning ordinance, and that she ruled in the favor of Judith Pontius. The township accepted that ruling. The township obeyed by that ruling, but the township did what everyone else has a right to do in a case. They appealed the case. They appealed the case to the Court of Appeals. And because the township has a zoning ordinance. So the township appealed what was their right to appeal, especially when there was a conflict between the two circuit court judges who sit in Washtenaw County. And at the Court of Appeals level, there was another case that was ahead of us called DeRuiter v. Byron Township, which had the same issue in regards to whether or not their zoning ordinance was preempted by the Medical Marijuana Act. Their case was heard first. The DeRuiter decision went against Byron Township, and so when our case came up in the Court of Appeals, their decision went against us as well. So at that point in time, all these townships, they had similar issues. They did the only thing they could do to enforce their zoning ordinances, which was to file an appeal with the Michigan Supreme Court. Now, whether people like it or not, the Michigan Supreme Court consists of 7 justices. They are elected by you. They are elected by the people of the state of Michigan. They may be nominated by the different political parties, but the bottom line is they are elected by the citizens of the state of Michigan. In April 27th of 2020, the Michigan Supreme Court ruled in a unanimous decision. And I say that because it's very difficult in this day and age for a Supreme Court like we have to make any decision unanimously. This is an exception. The court ruled unanimously and said that under the preemption conflict doctrine, that the Medical Marijuana Medical Act does not nullify or preempt or conflict with the municipality's inherent authority to regulate land use under the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act. And the DeRuyter case was reversed, which in turn resulted in the court entering an order reversing the case involving Judy Pontius, and it went back to the Michigan Court of Appeals. And the Michigan Court of Appeals on December 29th of 2020 said this: in this case, plaintiff Ypsilanti Township zoning ordinance contains a locational restriction. It regulates where primary caregivers may operate medical marijuana dispensaries and medical marijuana nurseries. We conclude that this locational restriction does not directly conflict with the MMMA. The ordinance at issue here, Ypsilanti Township, only limits where a primary caregiver may operate a medical marijuana dispensary or medical marijuana nursery. Accordingly, pursuant to our Supreme Court's decision in DeRuyter, we hold that plaintiff's ordinance does not directly conflict. We thus reverse the trial court's order determining that the ordinance directly conflicts with the MMMA and remand for further proceedings consistent with this opinion. In other words, when it was sent back to the Court of Appeals, Judge Conkey's ruling was reversed, which brought us back to where we began in 2014 before Judge Archie Brown, that the township has the right to regulate land use through its zoning. It does not outlaw or prohibit primary caregivers. That's been a mistaken point over and over again. You have an inherent right to grow 12 plants if you have a medical marijuana card. If you have a medical primary caretaker license, you can grow for 5 patients. You just can't do it in a residentially zoned district. And there's reasons on the record going back to 2010 as to why the Planning Commission and the board felt that was the best compromise as to where they should be located. You may disagree with it. That's okay. Again, you're entitled to your own opinion, but you're not entitled to your own facts. Now, at this point in time, this case was then brought before Judge Conkey on a remand from the Court of Appeals. And as attorneys, all of us are held to a standard where we have to ensure that we follow the court orders. I can tell you right now, there are many orders over the years that I've witnessed and read and been part of that I may not agree with, but I've never would advise my client or this township board to disobey a lawful court order issued by a circuit court judge, Court of Appeals panel, or the Michigan Supreme Court. So as we sit here right now, I've had 7 judges from the Supreme Court, 3 from the Court of Appeals, and 2 from the circuit court, which makes 12, have all said, 12 judges have now said the township's zoning ordinance regulating medical marijuana primary caregivers from a locational standpoint is lawful. Again, may not like that, but that's the fact. Now, when we came in regards to Judy Pontius' case, the township was simply doing what it would do in any other case. We entered the order before Judge Conkey. Council was notified, nobody showed up. The attorney representing Ms. Pontius never showed up. We adjourned it at our request because we could not understand why nobody showed up. We adjourned it a second time. Nobody showed up. On the second time, that order was entered to bring the property at 1196 Laster Avenue into compliance where you have 12 medical marijuana plants and the access was to be removed. That was the order of Judge Conkey. And then from that point on, there became a media tour where everybody was going on TV saying they weren't going to follow the law. They weren't going to follow the order. They weren't going to do this. They weren't going to do that. Our position was the same as it's been for 12 years. The court has ruled, and we expect people to honor the court. We never asked for incarceration. We never asked for anybody to be thrown into jail. We simply asked that the order be entered and enforced as it would for anybody else. That's not asking too much. And so on the day or the week before the hearing, we actually got an email from the new attorney saying, we've contacted the sheriff's department, we've removed the plants, and all we have are the plants that she's going to use for personal and medical use. Okay? So we go to the hearing, expecting everything to be, in compliance. Everything is going to be at least the way the court order was. At that point, that's when you talk about a bait and switch. That's when everything went differently. That's when, for the first time, Judy goes, I'm not a caregiver. Those patients are not for, those plans are not for my patients. In fact, I've asked those patients to go out and get new caregivers. Those are my plans. And so what you have now is a situation, and again, when you, I was told in sixth grade by a teacher, I never will forget, you got to tell the truth. You can't dance between raindrops because sooner or later, if you do, you're going to get wet. And right now you have a situation where you now have Detroit News, quoting Barton Morris, told Conkey during a Wednesday hearing that his client has a right to own 55 marijuana plants in her home rather than 12 because she is no longer a caregiver and they are her personal plants. The evidentiary hearing will be scheduled in order to give Morris an opportunity to establish his claim that the plants are for personal use because he had previously argued Pontius was entitled to the plants because she was a caregiver. That's called bait and switch. That's called a trial by ambush. That is not proceeding in good faith. The same article, similar article was written by the Free Press the same day in regards to right now that noting that there had been a claim that she was a caregiver and she was going to keep the plants in spite of the court order, and that now she was claiming that those plants were for her personal use. That's fine. The township can deal with that issue, and we'll have an evidentiary hearing, and we can find out whether or not a person can have 55 plants for their personal use in the township. We don't believe that that is lawful. But at the same time, the one thing I know that this board has done, and all the other boards that I've been involved with over the years on this issue, is they've told the truth. They've been consistent in regards to what exactly they're doing. And again, this ordinance came about because of a public hearing before the Planning Commission. So I'll keep the board informed as to when the next court date is. But again, there's been a lot of, and as far as personal attacks, we understand what Facebook does. We understand what they do. It's fine. But at the end of the day, we know what we're trying to do. We're not out to put anybody in jail for marijuana use. It's simply location as to where you can legally operate. And if a board down the road wants to revisit that issue, that'd be their prerogative. But at the same time, you cannot vilify people who are basically carrying out their oath and fulfilling their duties and responsibilities as administrators, zoning administrators, police officers, Office of Community Standards. They all have a job to do, and we do it the best that we can with a degree of fairness and impartiality and justice for all. And so that's my update in regards to this issue right now. But there has been an evidentiary hearing scheduled because she now claims that these 55 plants are for her personal use. So there's no longer a caregiver issue at this point. It's simply, those are my plants. I get to keep them for my personal use. And that's what we'll find out in the weeks ahead as to whether or not you can grow 55 plants for personal use. We don't believe you can, but we'll find out.
Thank you, Ms. Myers. Under new business, we have the request of Fowling Warehouse, Mid-Michigan Fowling LLC for approval to transfer an existing Class C liquor license to be used at 3050 Washtenaw Avenue.
So moved, Joe Rowe.
Support Wilson.
Motion Rose, support, Gerald Rose, support Wilson. Stan, do you want to give an update from the Liquor Committee? We had a presentation in the work session. It's kind of a cool.
Well, I'll give a brief one. Trustee Wilson, Trustee Swanson, myself are the Township Liquor Commission. We met with the prospective business owners about 2 months ago. They are bringing a new business to 3050 Washtenaw, which is a vacant building, not being utilized. It's a sport called foaling. I wasn't familiar with it until recently. But it's going to reactivate a business, put it back on the tax rolls. It's going to employ approximately 60 people in the community. It's a place where you can go, eat, drink, recreate, and hopefully bring life back to a portion of the township that hasn't seen a lot of activity. So the three-person liquor committee recommended approval to the full board, and hopefully we can do that this evening. This group did not seek a liquor license from the township. We have a very small quota left of only 5 or 6. They went a different route and bought one out of escrow through the state of Michigan, Washtenaw County, at a much higher rate. They paid somewhere in the neighborhood of $80,000 for this license. And so they're utilizing that license in a better way. We keep our quota. We bring a business to the township in a vacant building and add 60 jobs. So hopefully the remaining trustees will see fit to approve it this evening.
Thank you, Treasurer Eldridge. Other questions or comment? Trustee Swanson?
I just want to say thank you to the staff, the fire marshal, and the building and Office of Community Standards for the work that they do. So when you help us, that helps us make good decisions. So thank you for everything that you did to help us learn about the things that needed to take place about occupancy and making those adjustments in the addendum. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Other comment? The only thing I would like to, and we didn't get clarity on, was the number of patrons with the parking. And we were going to get that from planning. I don't know if that's part of this, although on the application, it states like a certain number. So I just want to, it's 984.
Yeah.
Is a capacity, but they said they were going to limit it to 600 or 700. I just want to make sure that the parking.
And we'll check that tomorrow.
That's all.
Planning director was out earlier when we checked. So I'll get that and pass it on to the board. But they have a parking and a planning verification through his office. He just wasn't able to get me the copy.
Right, that was the only question I had. I think this is kind of exciting. You're throwing a football at bowling pins, and I hear it's entertaining and a lot of people participate, and I think it will be a great new business for our township. So, we have a motion and support. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The next item is request to approval of a 2.5% wage increase for non-union employees and a salary adjustment for our Director of Golf of Operations for 2021.
Move to approve.
Support Peterson.
We have a motion by Wilson, support by Peterson. We discussed this in the work session. Are there any other questions or comment? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 3 is a request authorization to sell 2 vacant parcels on Lakeview Drive in the amount of $3,300.
So moved, Joe Rowe.
Support.
Motion by Gerald, support by Eldridge to approve the request to sell 2 vacant parcels which are unbuildable by themselves, but combined with neighboring property, it makes it buildable for a home site. Any comments or questions regarding that? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The next item is a request to authorize circuit court litigation to abate a public nuisance located at 189 Outer Lane, which is budgeted.
Support, Joe Rowe.
Motion Eldridge, support Gerald Rowe. There's a picture of the public nuisance, and we tried to get compliance, and this is the court action that hopefully will have this demolished, because it doesn't look like it can be restored. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Request to authorize circuit court litigation to abate a public nuisance by padlocking, which is located at 8084 Creek Bend.
So moved, Joe Rowe.
Support Wilson.
Motion Gerald Rowe, support Wilson to approve the padlock. Any questions or comment? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I'm so used to being on Zoom and everyone being in front of me. Number 6 is a request to approve an amended contract with the Water Resource Commission for vermin management services in the amount of $25,000, which is budgeted.
So moved, Peterson.
Support.
Motion Peterson, support Eldridge. Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Under authorization and bids, in the work session, we agreed to add to item number 1 to authorize the signing of the contract contingent upon our attorney approval. So number 1 is request to award the low bid to Premier Group Associates for the Loon Feather Point Park renovation project and authorize the signing contingent upon the attorney's approval.
Move to approve.
Support.
Motion Wilson, supported Gerald Rowe.
Swanson.
Swanson, pardon me. Questions or comments? The long-awaited Loon Feather Park. So we bid it out, and there were no bids. So we now have 3 competitive bids, and I know the community and everyone looks forward to this renovation project. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 2 is a request to seek architectural and engineering proposals for site and security improvements at the Civic Center and 14B Court.
So moved, Peterson.
Support.
Motion Peterson, support Eldridge. These will be coming back to the board. It's another long-awaited project for security for the court and for our Civic Center. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. There's no other business. Are there, and the board member updates were given in the work session? So a motion to adjourn. Oh,
Arloa Kaiser, 1421 Melvin Street. Can you please tell me with Loon Feather, is that the one that we?
On Grove Road.
On Grove Road,
Yes.
but that's the one that we got petitions for?
Yes.
To, for state money, or is that
Yeah, we have a
correct?
DNR grant, and then it's 50/50 match, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I should have clarified. I'm sorry. Motion support? No, we're finished. I'm sorry.
Oh, I thought there was another public comment
No,
section. at the
public
end.
comments was in the beginning.
Oh, in the beginning.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm sorry. And then you
Okay.
can comment on every agenda item. So
Okay.
a motion to adjourn is in order.
So move.
Oh,
Motion Wilson,
support Peterson.
support Peterson. What time is it?
8:03.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.